Glad you could all join us today. We have as our speaker Chad Whittington, who's president and CEO of CAPA. He started his career with CAPA in 1998. He's worked in operations and the accounting department as a financial analyst until he was promoted to controller in 2000. He's been chief financial officer in 2010, was when he started that role. In 2014, he was promoted to executive vice president and chief operating officer. He was named president and CEO in August of 2017. In addition to his responsibilities for CAPA, he also serves as the managing executive director for partner cultural organizations, including the McCoy Center for the Arts, the Drexel Theater, and Lincoln Theater Association. He's been a Tony voter, which I know he'll talk about today, and a member of the Broadway League. Chad was an honors graduate at Ohio State University in finance. He was the recipient of Business 40 Under 40. He is also treasurer of the Columbus Cultural Leadership Consortium and a non-board advisor of the Columbus Metropolitan Club Finance Committee. He and his wife Melinda are the proud parents of Violet, and he enjoys recreational aviation and spending time with family. And one thing that wasn't in his bio that I know about that I wanted to share with you is that when Chad was a student at OSU, he wanted to find some part-time work to help pay tuition and went to the jobs board at the Ohio Union and took a little flyer tab for the Ohio Theater and ended up doing odd jobs, weekends and evenings, cleaning the Ohio Theater, working with security, and has been earning promotions straight through. So with Chad in his current role, having his finance background and having served as CFO, CAPA is certainly in fiscally responsible hands. Please, will you help me welcome Chad Whittington to Rotary?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I really feel like our organizations are similar. We both work to improve the community. Obviously, that is our perspective every day at CAPA, through the arts, trying to improve the community. It's an exciting time at CAPA. We've done a lot of things, and we've got a lot of things coming up that we're excited about. We've got a new strategic plan in place. 2019 is our 50th anniversary. We're just on the cusp of that. And we've done some new branding and logo work recently. And you are actually getting a sneak peek at this. This is the new CAPA logo, and then a new tagline as well, Living, Breathing Art. This doesn't go public until tomorrow. We change our website and all those fun things. So I wanted to show that to you today, though, kind of give you the inside scoop. So please don't take pictures and put them on Facebook. My marketing department will kill me. I mentioned it's our 50th anniversary, and it's that's an exciting time for us. I'm not going to talk a lot about our history. I know Larry Fisher's done a great job of speaking on that for you in the past. I do want to note something that's really important, though, that came out of what they did 50 years ago, and that is they didn't call us the Ohio Association for the Arts or the Ohio Theater Association, despite the fact that CAPA was formed to save the Ohio Theater, literally from the wrecking ball. And that's a picture of the marquee of the Ohio Theater right there. But what they did is they called us the Columbus Association for the Performing Arts. And you think about what we've become over the last 50 years and all the many things that we do now, it was looking forward in a wonderful way, in a very meaningful way, that they chose the name that they did. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit today, all the different things that CAPA does, because I think that a lot of folks may not be familiar with all the things we do. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but this is the strategic plan work that we did. And really in the middle are the important things that we identified that we do for the community. Arts leader and collaboration, dynamic presenting, education and access, and stewarding our buildings. I want to get into those topics just a little bit more. I'm sure most of you have been to our theaters. Here's an example of one of the performances we do. This is Dave Kyle's at the Palace Theater. Another one, the Lincoln Theater over the Rhine. We do over 60 performances a year, national, international acts. We believe in bringing things to Columbus that wouldn't be here if we didn't bring them to the community. You don't have to go to the East Coast or the West Coast to see great arts entertainment. We've got it right here in Columbus. We do everything from these types of musical acts to family shows like Daniel Tiger, to Dance Theater of Harlem. We've got things all across the spectrum. Sure, many of you are familiar with the Broadway series. We've got a small show that starts tomorrow night at the Ohio Theater. Hamilton, we're very excited about that. How many people are coming to Hamilton over the next 3 weeks? All right. Just one of the shows in our Broadway series. We partner with Broadway across America to bring the Broadway series here to Columbus each year. A couple of fun facts to share with you about the Broadway series, specifically Aladdin, if any of you saw that when it was here in the fall. Aladdin was the heaviest show that we had ever had at the Ohio Theater. We actually had to have a structural engineer come in to the theater and make sure it would hold the show. So big sets, big everything. As you can see there, 30 semi-trucks to load the shows in. I know you walk into the theater and you see these magical sets come up and down, and it's all really cool, but take a minute to think about what it takes to get all that into the theater. They load it in just a matter of usually 18 hours or so, 8 performances across the week, and then get it back out and on to the next theater, where it opens again just 2 days later. It's really impressive, and this is one of those shows that it was just amazing to see all the technology and that goes into making it happen. It took 8 days to get that show loaded into the Ohio Theater, so really a spectacle even from the perspective of shows out there. So not the most shows. Anybody want to guess, or excuse me, the most trucks? Anybody want to guess what show might have had the most semi-trucks? That's another big one. There's one that was even a little bit bigger than that, Lion King. And that's because if you think of all the animals that come down the aisles at the beginning of the show, and just so the sets weren't nearly as big as for Aladdin, but with all those extra props, I don't remember the exact number, but it was well over 30 trucks for that particular show. A couple more facts about the Broadway series. I mentioned Hamilton. Really incredible. Hamilton for us is a phenomenon. Over 66,000 people will come through the Ohio Theater in the next 3 weeks to see Hamilton. And even though I know the weather's going to be really cold on Wednesday, people are still going to show up. I'm not worried about that. I get asked a lot, are the performers that perform here in Columbus the same ones that are on Broadway? And the answer to that is typically no. If you think about Hamilton as an example, it's still performing in New York right now. There's a show in Chicago, and there are a couple touring shows on the road. We're getting one of those here in Columbus. So most of the time, the cast that we're seeing here locally, great talent, the same talent that comes out of New York. The casting is all done out of New York for the tours, just like the sitting shows are. But it's usually a different cast than you would see if you flew to New York and saw the show on Broadway. Kathleen mentioned Tony voting. We do have a local connection, and right now that's me for the Tony voting. So some parts of the job are tough, and this is one of those. I have to go to New York and see all the new shows that come out over the course of a year, both the musicals and the plays. And then when the nominations come out in April, we take part in the voting that you then see in June when the Tony Awards are on TV. So for me, it's a great way, first of all, to stay connected to the shows. As I said, we're partners with Broadway across America, so locally we get to have some decisions about what shows come to Columbus. So if you like what we're bringing, feel free to talk to me about it afterwards. If you don't, I'll blame it on the people in New York. They picked those shows. But great opportunity to go see those shows, and also to have that local influence on the shows that are picked for the award winners for the Tonys each June. One thing that you might not know, moving away from the presenting piece of what we do over to the building piece, is that we run the Shubert Theater in New Haven, Connecticut. And we've done that since 2001, so it's been 18 years now that we've ran the theater out there. The Shubert is a 1,600-seat theater. It was really the pre-Broadway house for a lot of the famous musicals that took place. Almost all the Roger and Hammersteins performed at the Shubert Theater before they went to New York, because New Haven by drive is about 2 hours away. So they'd go there, they'd work out all the kinks, then they'd take it on to Broadway and make their big debut. Shows like Oklahoma, which actually started with the title of Away We Go, and while it was at the Shubert Theater, they changed the name to Oklahoma, would be an example of a show that was seen at the Shubert Theater before it was seen anywhere else. So we managed the theater for a number of years, and now we own the Shubert Theater, continue to present Broadway and a lot of other shows there as well. Speaking of buildings, one of the things that we're really proud of is that just this past October, we reopened after 6 months the Palace Theater. We did a $6 million renovation on the inside of the Palace Theater. So if you've seen it in the last couple of months and have thought it looked different, you're absolutely right. It looks quite a bit different than it did before. replaced all the seats on the main floor and spread them out a little bit. We're all getting a little taller and a little bigger in other ways as well. So whenever we have the opportunity, we spread out the seats a little bit and put in cup holders. For us at our theaters, that's pretty unique, something we're starting to do now that we allow drinks into the theater. So all the wall coverings that you see there, really the color scheme in general is updated and is really going back to the original look when the theater was opened in 1926. There's another look, so looking towards the front of the house and the palace rather than out from the stage. These are all of the buildings that CAPA either owns or manages. Again, you see the Shubert on there in the corner, but really, if you look at this and you think about where we started, just the Ohio Theater, how much we've grown over the last 50 years in terms of what we've done, it's a pretty incredible story. Very proud of these buildings. We work hard to maintain the historic buildings and really to try and keep them the way that they were when they were built and originally used. We invest over $1 million each year back into our theaters to maintain them, keep them in good working order for the community. A couple more facts from the building folks. Over 5,000 light bulbs a year, and then that's not the Roman numeral 20. I just missed that. I'm sure, at least at my house, taking care of the toilets and keeping the bathroom clean is not list high on the list. At CAPA, we have over 500 toilets that we have to take care of among all the theaters. So the building staff, when I asked for fun facts, was quick to point that one out. Moving away from the buildings to collaboration and leadership, CAPA is uniquely placed in the community because of having the venues, because of our connection to so many arts groups, to really help raise the profile of the arts in Columbus and not only bring in amazing art, but help make sure that amazing art is created here in Columbus. And that's really important. As we move forward, that's really a focus for us is to do that. So this is an example of it, a program that just took past this last week, The Journey. It was a collaboration with Opera Columbus. A great show that is really, it's the story of African American culture over a time span of about 200 years. It was done through music, done through oral history. An example of something where they came up with a great idea, needed some help to make it happen, to actually bring it to being, and CAPA was able to partner with them and make that dream become a reality with Opera Columbus. And again, it's not always about us having to do the work ourselves, but sometimes it's about helping those groups that we work with, helping our partners, and making great things in Columbus. And this was a fabulous example of that. I've talked to a couple of people that went last week, and it was really an amazing program. I want to talk about our education programs for a moment. I know education that is something that's important to this group, and it's very important to CAPA as well. I'm super excited about our education program. About 7 months ago, we hired a director of education. First time we've had one on staff in about 14 years, and she's already making a great impact for us. This is an example of one of the events that we did. It was just last week out at Fort Hays. It was a poetry slam themed around Hamilton. So it had 15 adults and 15 kids go up and do their poetry, judged by professionals in the community that compete in poetry at the national level. And the winner from each category got tickets to Hamilton. They'll be joining us at Hamilton next week. So, this is an opportunity for us to get out into the community and do something that only CAPA could do in terms of tying a local art event to something like Hamilton, part of the Broadway series. That's actually the winner of the youth section, Plyan Patrick. You can imagine how excited he was when he found out he won a pair of tickets to Hamilton. This is part of the group. These are some of the folks that were involved in that event. CAPA has so many opportunities with education to just unlock the potential of acts that are coming to Columbus. Here's one example of this. This is the KIPP School, and the two in the red are performers from Dance Theater of Harlem. So to allow local students, imagine if you're in the arts here locally, and you get the opportunity to spend time with folks that are nationally recognized for what they do. That's an amazing moment for students locally, and that's one of the opportunities that we can provide. So as you can see, these local kids, these national dance folks that are then on the stage of the Palace Theater later that night, spending their day with local kids. It's really a magical moment for the students when we're able to provide that. Really very similar thing here. That gentleman was one of the actors for Aladdin, workshopping with local high school kids. Our signature program on the education side is the CAPA Marquee Awards. This is something we're really excited about. The inaugural CAPA Marquee Awards will take place this June, and really the process just started. So think of this as Tony Awards for local high schools. So High School Musical Theater Awards. There are 10 schools that applied this year, so we go out, we send adjudicators out, they judge performances for all these schools, and then in June we bring them all the kids from those 10 schools together, pick best title, best male lead, best female lead. But more importantly, we give those kids an opportunity on the stage of the Lincoln Theater to perform together. So again, another opportunity, if you're in high school musical here, in high school theater here in Central Ohio, being able to get on the stage of the Ohio Theater, the Lincoln Theater in this case, and perform is really a dream for these kids. And we're going to do that in June. Kids from all 10 schools will get together, they'll perform, they'll put together a presentation, and then we'll hand out the awards. Two kids, so the student that wins Best Male Lead and the student that wins Best Female Lead, they get to go from Columbus and they go and spend a week in New York with the winners from other markets that have similar programs all over the country and learn and be critiqued by folks in New York, the producers of the current shows like Hamilton, like Dear Evan Hansen, and people that are performing in those shows on Broadway. So we're excited about that. It's a great opportunity for some of our local talent to go be competitive in New York. And a lot of those kids, you look back at the students that were part of that program 5 years ago, and now they're performing on Broadway in New York. So it's a great opportunity for a couple of local kids to get exposure to someday be on Broadway. To us, this is important because if you think about high school athletics, we walk through our schools and there are trophy cases for lots of high school athletics. This is our opportunity to hand out awards both to the individuals and to the schools to recognize the really amazing talent that we have locally in our theaters, in our arts, just like we do with our sports. So the students that win these awards will go home with the trophy. We'll send them home with the school as well, and hopefully they'll put them in their trophy case back in the schools. That's what I've got. I wanted to leave some time for questions. Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead, in the back.
I have a double question. You replace your 5,000 light bulbs with LEDs? And secondly, can you make the case why CAPA should be tax supported with the sales tax?
Yeah, so the questions were, does CAPA replace its light bulb with LED light bulbs? And to make the case for the, I believe the ticket fee is what you're talking about, correct? Right, do the easier one first, which is the LED bulbs. The answer is yes. We have over time. Obviously for us, utility expenses are a big piece of what we do. So whenever we get the opportunity, whether we're talking about heating and cooling systems or things like light bulbs, we try and improve the technology because it has a real impact on the budget for us. It's not always possible. We also are trying to maintain the historical integrity of our buildings. And though you may not notice the difference in your home between a conventional light and an LED light, in the theater setting, in the historic buildings, you can sometimes tell the difference. So we are cycling over time. The Palace Theater, I talked about the renovation there. A majority of the lights that we replaced, we switched over to LED, and we will continue to do so as the technology moves forward. In terms of the ticketing fee, we support the ticketing fee and believe it's very important to the community. I'm sure a lot of you have heard these reasons before, but compared to other comparable cities, cities that compare to Columbus, the amount of public funding that the arts receives is much less than it is in those other cities. We are a growing community, and we are a growing community that is well respected across the country for a lot of reasons. Our great art scene is one of those. I've been at CAPA for 20 years now, and when I think about how different the arts in Columbus are versus 20 years ago, it's really amazing. You can't keep up with it all, right? I challenge any one person to try and keep up with everything that takes place in the city from an arts perspective. But as we continue to grow as a city, as we continue to want to raise our national profile even more, the arts need to keep up, and we need the support and able to be so that we can do that.
So that CAPA is the finance manager for a number of other performing arts associations. When, how, and why did this happen?
Yeah, so the question was, I heard that CAPA was in charge of finances for a lot of other groups. When and how did this happen? So we run a shared services program. This is part of the collaboration piece that I talked about earlier, where we provide administrative services even outside of just finance. So it's finance, it's marketing, it's development. We share staff with other arts groups. And the reason that we do that is twofold. One is because by pooling our resources, we save money and we can get better expertise than we could any group on their own. It's got the same benefit to CAPA that it does to other groups. We've really been doing this for better than 15 years now. CATCO was one of the first local groups that we got involved with doing shared services, and it's expanded out to there. The relationship we have with various groups is really customized to what that group needs. There's no boilerplate. Some groups we do the full spectrum of administrative services. Sometimes we just do finance for them, for example. The benefit really to those groups is we can be really good at those things. We can be experts at administration. They can focus on the artistic piece of what they do, and it has helped really allow the creative thinking in this community to expand. It has improved collaboration between the groups, and it's really been a successful model for us, and one that is starting to pick up in other communities across the country.
I'm wondering, are you planning to bring, and I don't think it's been here, but Dear Evan Hansen? My wife and I saw that in New York last summer. As you know, it's an unusually serious show for a musical, but it was excellent.
It was excellent. It won the Tony for Best Musical 2 years ago. So yeah, tough subject matter, but a great show. And still, if you're going to New York, it's still one of my recommendations for a show that you have to see if you're going there. So since I'm among friends, I will say that yes, on the season that hasn't been announced yet, Dear Evan Hansen will be part of the Broadway season next year. It's going to open the season in September, October.
I was delighted to hear about the Marquee Awards. Have you considered expanding it to the technical side of theater? There are some students who work very hard there.
That's a great point. So yes, one step at a time. My poor education director is already having a heart attack because I want to go to 20 schools in the Marquee Awards next year. But you're right, there's not enough focus on the what we would call the backstage side of what takes place and the technical side. And there's actually a lot of talent right here in Columbus on that. So that is something we talk about, and we are trying to figure out what's a sustainable way to do that. We already do a lot of that on a kind of a one-on-one type basis. Hamilton's a great example. So Hamilton is coming in, and there is a student that is going to shadow the production manager for at least 1 week and see everything that they do on the backside of the show. So that's a very small opportunity, but how can we expand that and get more kids that are doing things on a local basis to see how it looks for the big national touring shows.
Just speaking of revenue streams and also bringing more students into the fold of the arts, when I used to work in the mayor's office, there was some discussion about trying to develop a sound stage here in Columbus to generate revenue and to expose more folks to the industry and create jobs. I was wondering if CAP has been a part of any of those discussions or anything like that.
Yeah, ask if CAP has been involved with discussions about a sound stage here in Columbus. No detailed discussions about that. I've heard at times the same thing, and there are actually some groups that, I can't remember their name right off the top of my head, that are starting to cover that area, and I think they're doing a pretty good job of it. We are looking at ways that we can expand the creative industry in Columbus. One of those is film. There is opportunity for film, not the big budget, not the $40 million Avengers movie, but films in the $1 to $5 million range of creating a financing fund here locally and then having those films made or have the post-production done right here in Columbus. And then that would be, and the idea is to create enough of that activity here that those folks, the technical folks, live here in Columbus and become part of our community. Yes?
Any update on the South 3rd Street church you guys bought a few years ago?
Yeah, great question. No, right now, no. We've been focused on the work that I was talking about at the Palace Theater and getting that done and wrapping up the capital campaign on that, which we're very close to. And then the church is one of the things that we'll look at next. We talk about the Southern Theater a lot when we talk about the church. We held on to that for a long time, over 10 years, before we finally renovated it. So we're anxious. We think it has a great potential for the community. It's just about finding the right time and making sure our story is one that of the right community need in terms of getting it open. So more to come in the future. Okay, one more question. Anybody else? Yes.
It's not a question, but I want to maybe a fun fact. I really enjoyed your presentation. I want you to know I was at one of the first benefits to Save the Ohio Theater. They brought in Doc Severinsen, the Tonight Show band, yeah. And I think he had a connection. They played with the band leader from Eastmore High School and students. Wow. Were on stage with the band, about 5 Tonight Show people, and he put on a great performance. Thought you might just enjoy that started with education engagement.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. I didn't know that.
Any closing comment?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. We want our theaters to be accessible for everyone in our community. That's our commitment. So I hope all of you can find something that entertains you, and we're always looking for feedback on, what the community wants to see. So please share that with us if you've got it. Thank you.
Chad, enjoyed your remarks so much. Right at the beginning, you mentioned how Columbus Rotary and CAPA are similar in what you've brought to Columbus and continue to do that wouldn't have come to Columbus otherwise. And for Rotarians, and maybe more so for guests, Columbus Rotary brought Easter seals to Columbus, brought junior achievement to Columbus, brought the wheelchair component of the Columbus Marathon. It's about time we bring something else to Columbus. But those are three great efforts that Columbus Rotary served as the catalyst and the sponsor to move those two groups and one huge component. And so if anyone's got a great idea for bringing something else to Columbus, that's part of the spirit of Columbus Rotary. So we share that with you, Chad. Thank you so much for those remarks. On the education note, you did a great job today in sharing so much about what we don't see when we see Broadway shows, all the education that the production crews do and performers around the schools, and that was great. One of the things that Columbus Rotary does the most is we've partnered with the Columbus City Schools, also with KIP. We have a lot in Coleraine Elementary. We give out one new dictionary for them to keep. All of a sudden I saw Bob Weiler even under that bright light. Bob Weiler Fund contributes for us to have about $14,000 a year in annual expense for over 5,300 Columbus students each year, and I think, Scott, we're in our 12th year. And so that's been education. On Service Above Self, those projects, do you have any Hamilton tickets left over we can give to the winners of some of our student Service Above Self projects? I'm sure if we called them today, they could make tomorrow night. So the education for us is a big part of being a Columbus Rotarian, whether it's being the mentors to veteran students at Ohio State, and all we do with Columbus City Schools, and then with KIP that we've adopted. So we do share so much in common. And I share one thing in common with you, Chad. One of the tougher aspects of your job is going out to the Tony Awards. That's why I have to go to Florida next week for the whole week, because my clients make me do that in the dead of winter up here, and it's really a tough call. I'm already counting down the hours to that Saturday morning flight. We have coming up the Columbus Symphony Orchestra. One of our newer members, Denise Rigg, is the executive director of the CSO, and she is bringing some members of the symphony to actually demonstrate. So it's not going to be full songs, it's going to be to more improv to demonstrate so that you learn more, like Chad shared so well behind the scenes today, for the great job CAPA is doing. And under your leadership, now in your third year, it gets easier, right? Thank you for coming today. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to all the Paul Harris fellows that joined this year or added to that. And be the inspiration. This means adjourned.